So, over the past couple weekends, we've had the opportunity to play the Black Ops 6 beta, and obviously, most importantly for me, Gunfight was also in there, so I was very eager to check that out. In case you're new here, yes, I do only play Gunfight, and yes, I don't know what a woman looks like. As mentioned in a previous video, a big positive to start off with is that Gunfight will finally be there upon release and not only a couple months in like the past few titles. Unfortunately, as mentioned, I did not get a chance to play the beta. I was in Italy soaking up the sun the past couple weeks. However, I was watching and listening very closely to feedback from the community, and I've seen a lot of gameplays and clips. So in this video, I kind of want to discuss what we've seen so far, all the good things and the bad things, and kind of assess if it's gonna be a great or a horrible year for us Gunfight nerds. And if it is the latter, what we would need to fix that. I'll divide this video in a couple parts, so you can just skip around as we go, and yeah, let's jump in. So this is probably one of, if not the biggest topic with Black Ops 6 coming out, and for good reason. The introduction of Omni movement to Call of Duty is probably one of the most divisive topics I've seen in the last couple of years. On the one hand, you have the so-called sweats that are happy that there's finally some form of complex movement to create a broader skill gap. And on the other hand, you have the old head unks that claim Omni movement has no place in COD and that COD is not supposed to be played like that.
I'll tell you what, brother, that movement canes won't last 2 seconds in my lobby back in 09. Ever heard of gun skill, brother? Oh, that goddamn infinite booty slide mechanic, that's all that. These kids just sit in their mama basement all day long. They don't even go to school. They just play Call of Duty. I've been playing Call of Duty since before you was even a little twinkle in your daddy ball sack, boy.
For me personally, the biggest question I had was, how useful is Omni movement? Is it actually snappy and smooth and cohesive enough to offer a genuine outplay potential, or is it just a clunky gimmick that looks cool but has no real use? Now, looking at gameplay from various skill levels, I can tell that like 90% of the new movement is mostly the omnidirectional sliding rather than the diving, because the diving simply has too much of a delay between diving and shooting that it's just not really that usable. However, the general consensus in the community does seem to be that it is really smooth and that it does tie in nicely with the gunplay as well. All in all, I would say that sweaty gameplay is probably going to look mostly like more sliding and slide cancelling and maybe an oddball dive here or there, but of course this can change as we go further throughout the life cycle and people get more used to the movement.
She came up to me last COD next and was like, she was hella— Whoa! Whoa! What the was that?
The gameplay in general then, for me at least, at first glance looks very similar to Cold War. The animations, the HUD elements, the textures. However, it does look really refined, and although I can't vouch for it myself yet, the consensus is that the game actually feels pretty good. And one detail that's of course really important for Gunfight is that even in the absence of sneakers and vests and perks and whatever movement boosts you could have, is that the movement still looks really good in Gunfight as well, so that's of course a really big plus. And of course that's really important in Gunfight, because as we all remember, for example in Modern Warfare 2, the slow and clunky movement just ruined the pacing of Gunfight, and it just made it to where every round was basically more a test of patience rather than skill. Now, some other things that stood out to me while watching some gameplay was, first of all, the mantling again looks painfully slow, which is really annoying because it does limit your movement opportunities around the map. The guns look kind of shaky, they kind of seem to suffer from the same problem that MW3 had before the patch, where the idle sway was kind of randomized as soon as you scoped in, and the center of your reticle wasn't necessarily where your crosshair was aiming at, if that makes sense. Now, that might seem like a small detail to some of you, but as a mouse and keyboard player, I can tell you that it makes gunfights really inconsistent, and I really hope that they do address it if it is present in the game. And then speaking of inconsistent gunfights, apparently the hitbox and hitreg system has been changed to where damage multipliers aren't really a thing anymore. Like, you can shoot someone in the legs, the torso, or the head, and it does roughly the same amount of damage, which is a pretty stupid change in my opinion. And aside from that, just like MW3 and previous CODs, I've seen a couple clips already where people are just blasting people, getting a million hit markers, and then just getting absolutely melted, which at this point, I don't even know what causes that. Is that damage drop-off, bullet penetration, the servers? Oh yeah, that's another thing, servers. How many of you can I traumatize with these two words? I don't know about you guys, but the whole packet burst shit started in Vanguard for me, and I'm so baffled that it's still a thing so many years later. Like, how have they not addressed this? There's already been so many complaints again about poor netcode, about getting shot behind corners, inconsistent hit reg, inconsistent time to kill. It honestly feels like beating a dead horse at this point, but come on, we deserve better. And honestly, I know Activision can do better as well. Okay, so I'll stop yapping about the gameplay now. Honestly, in general, it looks like it has really solid fundamentals, but it is a shame that some other issues that are still persisting from previous CODs are still present in this one. Alright, I think we are taking a turn for the worse here. In the beta, there were 2 gunfight maps playable. You had Stakeout and Gala. Stakeout being a really close quarter apartment map, and Gala being more of a town hall congressy Gala map. Now first off, I do want to mention that we will be getting 4 or maybe 5 maps upon release for Gunfight, or strike maps as Treyarch calls them. Of course, Stakeout and Gala, and then we have Pit, and then also maybe Babylon and Sandhouse. So the weird thing is, Babylon is not listed as a strike map in their official release note, and Sandhouse is, so I'm not really sure if Babylon is going to be a gunfight map or not. Now, these maps, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, they look pretty terrible. Gala is meh. It kind of seems to suffer from the same problem as Training Facility in MW3, where there's not really any incentive to push out a spawn, which just leaves people to camp, and apparently some people in the Discord also told me that the footsteps are crazy loud on that map, so again, it's probably a rat's nest. However, the map is like 95% symmetrical, and it's not excessively large, which is, of course, 2 important points for Gunfight, but in general, I just want to say it's just uninspired. Now, Stakeout, this map has some cool traits like the outside balcony routes and stuff, but fundamentally, it really suffers from the same kind of illness as like DOS House or Stash House. There's just so many nooks and crannies and corners and spots, and it's one of those maps where you're basically better off ratting in a corner holding 1 or 2 angles because you know that your opponent looking for you has to check twice as many corners. So again, Stakeout also seems to be on the rattier end of the spectrum, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but it even seems kind of too small and too tight for Gunfight in my opinion. Now sadly, this is where our direct Gunfight insights end, because only Stakeout and Gala were the playable Gunfight maps in the beta. So for Pit and Babylon, we're gonna have to look at some 6v6 gameplay, and even looking at that, I can already tell that those maps are going to be absolute dog shit for Gunfight. Starting with Pit, the layout has the exact same problem as Stakeout, but now the lighting is terrible as well. Watching how the map flows, I can already tell the flag is gonna spawn down mid-map, and it's just gonna be a battle of who can hold like one of those top sections and just rat there until someone tries to make a play. And looking at how wide that mid area is, it's pretty much gonna be impossible. And then Babylon, it's just too big, and the structure in the middle with the wide lanes around is so annoying because you have no oversight, and I can already promise you, you're gonna be playing Ring Around the Rosie every single 1v1 scenario. And again, it's just littered with these extra shacks and huts and spots and corners that just serve no purpose in Gunfight. They're just supplementary 6v6 spawn points that you need so you don't get killed instantly, and then in Gunfight they just serve as extra hide and seek spots. Lastly then, I can't really speak on Sandhouse yet because we haven't seen the full reveal of it, but if it's similar to the original Nuketown, then I guess that will probably be pretty decent and at least a lot better than the other maps we've seen so far. The main thing that just bothers me with these maps is that it just doesn't feel like these maps were actually purposefully made for Gunfight. If we're being completely honest here, and I don't think a lot of people would disagree with me on this one, the devs have not, since 2019, recovered their mojo in terms of Gunfight maps. 2019 Gunfight maps were so distinctive, so purpose-built. Like speedball, stack, docks, fast-paced symmetry, like flow. And then in all the other games since then, it's just been lackluster. I mean, in MW3 we got 1 new Gunfight map. 1. And then the others are just ported over from MW2 and we got some sloppy 6v6 leftovers. I think the maps will probably make or break the game mode for me. You can have the best movement and outplay potential and whatever, but if the maps just incentivize a ratty gameplay, I mean, I fear that with these map layouts, the high degree of skill-based matchmaking and the loud footsteps, this Gunfight might suffer the same fate as MW2, with every match being a CDL angle-holding patience test. Alright, that's enough of the maps. To bring it back on a positive note, the loadouts actually look really decent. Most builds tend to follow a similar pattern of a primary AR or SMG with like a sight on it, a pistol secondary, and some fun stuff here and there like snipers or rocket launchers. And all of the loadouts actually look usable, which is a really good thing. Even the heavier LMG builds still look usable, pushing the movement a little harder. The variety could use a little bit more work. From what I've seen, I can make out maybe like 10 or 15 loadouts, but I mean, in the devs' defense, it is still the beta, and even in the 2019 beta, there were only like 10 loadouts, so in that regard there is a lot of potential, and I really hope that throughout the Black Ops 6 life cycle we will see a healthy flow of new loadouts in contrast to some other titles. So if there is one thing that kills a game mode faster than anything else, it's not having dev support. If it's not Gunfight, it's Ground War or Zombies. For example, now in MW3, the devs have had their priorities in the absolute gutter lately. I mean, have you seen the Season 6 roadmap? I have to go with C. Gunfight in 2019 was so huge because the devs actually cared. We did get the new season weapons, we did get the new actual gunfight maps, we did get the occasional spin-off game mode. And yet, in all subsequent titles, the game mode has been left all but abandoned. This spawns a kind of chicken and egg problem. Are less people playing Gunfight, and is that why the devs don't bother? Or are the devs not bothering, and is that why less and less people play Gunfight? Now, this is the first Call of Duty in 5 years to have Gunfight upon release, day one, so that does give me faith that they actually bothered with it, you know? And I really hope they carry on with it throughout the life cycle of Black Ops 6. However, as we've been discussing, Gunfight will need some tinkering. The maps need to be better, and without a fresh spin on it every now and then, the game mode will just sink like an anchor again. Now there are of course some more smaller details, like the voice chat and kill cams not working half the time, the stupid winner circle thing, the loud footsteps as mentioned. Some of these things might just be beta related, hopefully, and I really hope that they will address a lot of these things coming forward with the launch of the game. All in all, I want to say that this game has a lot of potential. Gunfight has a lot of potential, but we've been saying that every year now. Still, I can't wait to try it, and I really hope that you guys will be there when I do. Let me know if you have some more thoughts in the comments. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for the support, and I'll see you in the next one.